Dave, first of all, thank you so much for agreeing to come on this show, and it's a great pleasure to be interacting with you once again, Dave. And welcome to the GHR Talk Show, which is being presented by the global HR community. In this series, we plan to engage with the top HR leaders, thought leaders, business leaders, and people managers to address the trends and the challenges facing the people side of business. Whether you're an HR professional, a people manager, a business leader, an academician, or a student, through this talk show, we plan to engage and discuss insightful discussions that aim to inform, inspire, and shape the future of human resources. This talk show is more than just a series, it's a journey towards understanding the excellence in the dynamic world of human resources management. In our inaugural episode, we will be discussing about the future of HR, the HR trends for 2024. And to talk about this, we have none other than the father of modern HR and HR guru, Dave Ulrich. Dave Olson Ulrich is a university professor, a speaker, a management consultant, executive coach, and more than anything, the guru of HR. He is a professor at the University of Michigan and co-founder of RBL Group. Dave, we strongly believe that change is the only thing constant. But the world has seen unprecedented change over the last few years. COVID, AI, war, and very recently ChatGPT has threatened the way in which the world sees going forward. You've been the guiding light and the lighthouse for human resources management over the last 3 to 4 decades. You've seen the evolution of the society, the economies, the business landscape, and the HR fraternity and the human resources function. I would just like to know from you, how are the dynamics of the global workforce evolving as we head into 2024, especially considering the impacts of technology, remote work, and changing employee expectations? What do you believe will be the biggest challenges and opportunities for HR professionals in 2024, and how should they prepare for? Dave, over to you, and we look forward to your insightful discussions.
Well, first of all, Ramesh, thank you. What a privilege to join you on this global HR talk show to share some ideas. I am not the only expert, and I know my ideas are not definitive, but I have a few thoughts about the world we live in today and where HR seems to fit. Let me maybe start with a story, and then a headline, and then 3 points. A few months ago, I was traveling, and on the airplane was a colleague of mine with his spouse. And he got off the plane, and he introduced me, and he said, "This is Dave Ulrich." And the colleague said, "He works in HR." And it was almost derisive. It was dismissive. It was, oh, what a horrible thing. There's a legacy image of HR as the people in the back room with the eye shades doing policies and the policy police. And I could just tell that the mindset about HR for many, many people is the legacy mindset of personnel, industrial relations 20, 30 years ago. It's hard to change that image. So in light of that, we're in the process of changing that. We are in the process of changing that. And so here's the headline, and then 3 points. The headline, now is the time. I love the term, now is the time. More than I've ever seen because of the world we live in, and you just talked about it, with uncertainty, economic uncertainty, with war and rumors of war in many parts of the world, with regulation beginning to look at human capital around the world, clearly technology, the AI movement and how AI changes the access to information. In that world, that context is the kingdom. And it's a context of change, of uncertainty. We don't know what the future is going to be. But in that context, the content becomes the king or the queen. Context is the kingdom, content is the king or the queen. And that content is about people and organization. In almost every senior management meeting today, this could be conferences at Davos with senior leaders. This could be conferences of boards of directors. It could be Securities Exchange Commission in India or the United States. Almost every forum where business leaders gather, the three issues that people are talking about, one is technology, no question. Two is uncertainty, economic change. Is it a recession? Is it growth? And three is organization and people. And they're all about equal. We can't do technology without organization and people. AI is an incredible tool to look back. It summarizes information, but it doesn't work unless people ask the right question. If you don't know what to ask of the AI data set, you don't get good answers, and it doesn't have the judgment to predict the future. Uncertainty, in a world of uncertainty, we need to focus less on the uncertainty and more on the certainty. What will we do? And then HR and people is center stage. So my first thought, my headline, now is the time. We in HR need to step up to that opportunity. We are not invited to the meetings. We are expected to be in the meetings, and we need to bring knowledge and insight. So with that, let me suggest three things that we bring to an engagement with a business leader, with a board of directors, with a customer, with an investor. Number one, HR is not about HR. It's about helping the business succeed in the marketplace. In the evolution of HR, we've seen a three-step evolution. HR was personnel, terms and conditions of work. How do we pay? How do we do benefits? How do we hire? All the administrative work. It still has to be done. I remember being in a meeting a few years ago where the HR team was talking about our future and strategy and the direction we're going to help the company. And the CEO of this company came in at the end of the meeting and he said, I understand you're looking at strategic issues, but the administrative stuff has to be done well. For example, he said, we just made an offer to a new vice president of marketing. The letter went out over my signature, but you and HR prepared and distributed the letter, and you got a zero wrong. Instead of 200,000 a year, it went out as 2 million a year. Wow. And so the person we offered the job to immediately called me, the CEO, and said, thank you, I'll take the raise. The head of marketing, the man or the woman, knew it was false, but the CEO said, you embarrassed us. You've got to do the personnel work well. And technology helps with that. The second phase of HR was what I call human resources. It's managing the HR practices, staffing, training, development, compensation, communication, organization design. We've identified 10 of those HR practices you've got to manage. And there's innovation there. The third phase of HR, from personnel to human resources, is human capital. Those practices deliver talent. Human capital is our people. You mentioned the workforce of the future. How do we manage them? How do we align them with what we're doing in strategy? That's been legacy HR. Personnel, build on that. We got to do it well. Human resources, function, build on that. Human capital, managing people. I think the next wave is what I'm going to call human capability. Okay. Human capability is focused not inside the firm, but outside. It's creating value in the marketplace. Strategy, and there are brilliant thinkers in strategy. You look at a mirror and you look at your company, and that's the strategy. Where do we share? Where do we invest? Human capability looks through the mirror as if it's a window to the outside world. HR is not about HR. It's creating value in the marketplace. That outside world includes customers, investors, communities, suppliers, regulators. Now HR's job is to make sure that what we do inside the firm is connected to the value outside the firm. Let me give another example. About a year and a half ago, I was doing a talk with, I'll say the company, it was Amazon Web Services. Their top 100 people, all scientists, mostly scientists, PhDs. I don't know,
Right.
Ramesh, if you or others have been intimidated, but they had PhDs in physics, computer science, statistics, mathematics. And I'm going, I got a college degree in English. I read books and got a degree. I did statistics some. I thought, how do I get their attention? And so I started by saying, what do these companies have in common? And I listed some. Digital equipment, they knew that, technology, Compaq, Eastman Kodak, Toys R Us, Sears. I listed companies. Somebody yelled out, they all went broke. And I yelled back, I consulted for every one of them. And they laughed and said, so what are you doing here? And I said, because I made a mistake. We focused inside the company, not outside.
Right.
So let me say that clearly. The first message to my HR friends and business friends, HR is not about HR. It's about creating value in the marketplace. If we don't succeed in the marketplace with customers, investors, communities, there is no workplace. And so when we walk into a room with an HR plan for changing culture, for hiring, for training, my strong advice, do not talk about the HR plan. Talk about the customers, talk about the investors, talk about the community, the reputation, and then say, if we want to succeed in these external world, we can build the right HR systems. So now is the time. That's the headline. Point number one, HR is not about HR. It's about creating value for stakeholders outside. That's HR outside in, delivering value. And I could spend forever talking about examples of that. Well, let's try one. Pick an HR practice: staffing, training, compensation, culture, leadership. Just pick one of those practices, Ramesh. Pick one.
Dave, I would pick compensation because today there's
Super.
a mad race for compensation. We are hearing of 100% increases in compensation. So, what
So
do we have
here's
to
where
say about it?
compensation starts. It starts with criteria for the salary. The criteria could be the behavior, the outcome. So here's my advice to start. Take your compensation criteria, what your KPIs, your OKR, key performance indicators, OKRs, take them to your best customers or investors and say to them, if our business leaders do these things, would you be more willing to buy our product? Wow, that's kind of cool. So you're going to get involved as a customer in setting the criteria for compensation. Then we need feedback. How well does the leader behave against the things we need him or her to behave against? We go to the customer and say, we're not going to do a 360. We're going to do a 720. We're going to ask you, the customer or the investor, is the leader from our company or the salesperson or the person you interact with, are they serving you well? Are they collaborating with you? Are they providing you innovation you require? Set standards with customers, get feedback from customers and investors. And number three, somehow involve them in the allocation of bonus. I'll give an example I love. I have flown a lot in my life until COVID hit and flying slowed down, as have many others. One of the airlines I fly a lot with gave me $1,000 in $100 coupons.
Wow.
So I had $1,000 in coupons. And here was the letter. Dear Mr. Ulrich, you're one of our most frequent flyers. Last year, you did 150 segments on our airline. You know what good service is because you experience it every other day. When one of our employees gives you great service, a gate agent, a flight attendant, somewhere in the airline, call that employee over and give them a coupon. You, as a customer, now control $1,000 of our bonus money. Ooh, that's kind of cool.
That's great.
That's customer focused compensation. Headline: now is the time. Everywhere we see human capital and human capability issues being talked about, we need to move to human capability. Insight one: HR is not about HR, it's creating value in the marketplace, outside in. Number two, what's the value we create? Human capital focuses on people. And so I'll show this. I've done this a lot. My fingers represent the workforce, talent, people, competence. It's the skill set of our people. My fist represents the people coming together to create a great organization. That's why I call it human. That's the individual. Capability, that's the organization. The third lever is the combination. That's leadership. When I, as an HR professional, come into a business meeting, it could be an executive team, it could be a board of directors, it could be an investor meeting. I ask 3 questions. Do we have the right talent? Do we have the right organization? And do we have the right leadership?
Leadership.
In some ways, that's so simple. That's the topology or taxonomy that will drive HR forward. And in each of those 3 areas, they're connected to the customer and the investor. Talent. We just did an example of compensation. Are we building compensation through the eyes of the customer? Training. Are we inviting customers to design, present, and participate in training? Hiring. Are customers getting involved in screening our candidates? Leadership. We talk about leadership as a brand. Are the promises we make our customers showing up as the behaviors for our leaders? And organization. Are we building an organizational culture, not just inside our values, but the value of those values for customer? So if your company has a value set, and we all do, we have values that we value innovation, we value service, we value collaboration, take those to your customer and say to the customer, are these the values you want us to have? They'll probably say yes. I was in one firm, the company's number 1 value is to be the most profitable firm in their industry. And I said, imagine if you took that to a customer, what they'd say. They'd go, no, that's not our goal for you. We want you to serve us, not to make all the money for you. Question 1, are these the values you want us to have? That's the organization, my fist. Question 2, customer, what are the behaviors you want to see so that you know we live those values better than our competitor? Back to the compensation, you, the customer, define the behaviors. And 3, when we do those behaviors that you see, will you buy more from us? Business leaders, when I present that to business leaders and say, I want to talk about culture, they say, oh, here comes somebody else. Bring a friend to work, bring your pet to work, sing songs, celebrate, be happy, don't be toxic. And I go, that's not culture. Culture is the identity of the firm in the mind of the customer made real to every employee. Because when the customer says, yes, those are the values I want you to have. 2, here's the behaviors I need to see. 3, when you do those things, we'll buy more. Instead of 40% of what we buy in our market from you, we'll buy 60. Headline, now is the time. This is a great time. In India, everywhere in the world, the HR issues are center stage. Backroom to boardroom, they're real about human capability. 3 takeaways. Takeaway number 1, HR is not about HR. It's about creating value in the marketplace, outside in with external stakeholders. Takeaway number 2, HR is not just human capital talent. It's also organization and leadership. And the initiatives in all 3 of those areas we could spend hours on in your sessions. There's innovations in talent and training and learning and employee experience. There's innovations in leadership. There's innovations in organization. But that's the topology. And takeaway 3, upgrade the HR function and the HR people. We in HR need to rise to the opportunity. Decades ago, we said, I want to be in the room. Today, HR is in the room. In fact, people that say, get HR in the room, they're never going to get there because it's already there. What do we do once we're in the room? We deliver talent, organization, and leadership. What do we in HR need to know and do to make that happen? We need to create a great HR function. We've studied that a lot. You can follow me on LinkedIn in the research. Most people, when they try to create a great HR function, look at the operating model. Do we have centers of expertise? Do we have generalists? How do they work together? Almost all of those operating models operate under a similar assumption. In HR function, we're going to have specialists with deep knowledge about compensation, you mentioned, staffing, training, organizational development, performance management. We need specialists with deep expertise. And we need generalists who can adapt and apply that expertise to customers in a business unit, in a function, or at a geography. The transformation of the HR operating model is to get our specialists and generalists working together. And we and others have been working on that for 25 years.
Right.
But we don't find that as the most critical factor. The two most critical factors we find for an HR function, number one, is our HR purpose clear? Ask yourself, what do we in HR want to be known for? Is it personnel, terms and conditions of work? Is it HR practices, stage 2? Is it human capital, managing talent? Or is it human capability, winning outside in through talent, leadership, and organization? When that identity moves to human capability, the function is more successful. And the other feature of the function that works the best is how well do we work with each other? It's really interesting. A lot of people, I'm not sure how popular it is in your world. It's called RACI, Responsible, Accountable, Consulted, and
Yep.
Informed. It's a
We use
decision
that.
grid. It's been around forever. Ramesh, are you in a relationship? Have you been married for a period of time?
Yeah, for 35 years.
When's the last time you and your spouse sat down on a Sunday night and did a RACI about who's going to shop, who's going to pay bills, and you have a little piece of paper, and on the piece of paper you lay out a grid and you say you're responsible? When's the last time you and your wife had a grid? Then you put it on the refrigerator.
I don't think we've ever done it.
Neither have I. And I've been married 49 years this year, 50 this next year. We've never done it. Guess what? We work well with each other. We have a good relationship. When I'm busy, this week my wife is very busy. She's very busy in her career doing things. Guess what? I'm doing shopping tomorrow. How's that for really thought leadership? I'm going to fix meals. I'm going to do laundry. I'm not going to vacuum the floors. We have people that help with that, but I'm going to do the administrative chores because she's busy.
Right.
Next week, I'm busy. We have a relationship. I plead with the HR function to build relationships of trust within the function. Your generalists and specialists need to respect each other. And then to build relationships with the employees, business leaders, customers, and investors, and all the stakeholders. I have one more thing I want to say. Now is the time, headline. Number one, HR outside in. It's not about HR. It's creating value with customers and investors. 2, through human capability, talent, organization, and leadership. 3, by upgrading the HR function. And finally, upgrading the HR people. We in HR have got to rise to the opportunity. We've collected data. We love data. And I know India's been a part, NHRD has been a part, and others have been a part over 35 years. The skills of HR professionals have gone up around knowing the business, managing change, managing HR until COVID. And during COVID, they dropped.
Right.
We had data from 28,000 people around the world, big data set, not just our opinion. In fact, I got to confess, when I first saw the results from my statistician, I said, that can't be right. HR skills should be getting better. And I said, can you go change that? My statistician looked at me and he said, Dave, data is data. You got to get the story right. You can't lie with the data. Guess what I discovered? Think about, wherever you are listening to this, a really nice restaurant. You're going to celebrate your 36th anniversary with your dear wife. You go to a fancy restaurant. Think about a low-end diner. Which one gets more complaints? The fancy restaurant, because the expectations are higher. If I'm paying a very high amount for my fancy meal, I expect very good service and good food. If I'm paying a low amount for my meal and the service isn't as good, I go, okay, that's what you'd expect.
Right.
In HR, the expectations on us are higher than they've ever been. We must live up to it. And we identified the competencies required to do so. Here's the final headline. For 30 years, we defined competencies as an adjective and a noun: credible, activist, change agent, strategic partner, paradox navigator. Today, we define competencies as verbs. Remember, I studied English. I love verbs. Verbs are action. Here's the actions HR people need to take to succeed based on data from 28,000 people, and it determines outcomes. You accelerate business. Wow, that's interesting. I'm not a partner. I'm an accelerator of business. You advance human capability. I'm the advancer. I make human capability happen. I'm the stimulant. I'm the catalyst. I mobilize information through AI and technology. I foster collaboration within the function and between the function and the business. And finally, I simplify complexity. And I've tried to simplify complexity in this discussion. Here's the headline. Now is the time. My 3 takeaways. HR is not about HR. It's serving customers outside in and investors. 2, through human capability, talent, organization, and leadership. 3, by upgrading the HR function and the HR people. Boy, that's a very quick lecture with no slides, but I hope people who listen hear something from that that's helpful.
Thank you so much, Dave. It was not a lecture, it was an inspirational guidance for all of us. And you took us so well through history as to saying what was HR over the last few decades and what it is now and what is expected of them. And I like that title which you said, Now is the Time. And I also remember in your article on LinkedIn, you said the best is yet to come. And I just have a couple of questions, Dave. When I go back to the 1990s, when I started my career in human resources, or even a little earlier, when I studied about the role of HR, the 4 hats that HR has to play, what is known as Dave Ulrich's model of being a business partner, a change agent, an expert administrator, and an employee champion. Now, when I look back in the current scenario, I think HR is well accepted as a business partner, as you rightly said. They are at the board, they are at the leadership positions. HR has also been driving change in a lot of organizations. You also talked about accelerating business and change. HR has also now been a good administrator or an expert administrator leveraging technology. But my fear, Dave, maybe I'm wrong. Are the employees being left alone now? Who is actually the voice of the employee? Who is employee champion? Because I somewhere felt that HR is more loyal to the business than the business itself. So, what's your take on that, Dave?
One of the things we're finding in today's world is the ability to navigate paradox. Here's a paradox. You have to care for the employee and you have to care for the business. The social agenda with the employee and the economic agenda are not counterintuitive. And in fact, the research shows that when employees have a higher commitment or engagement, whatever index you want, the business is going to have a higher value on customer scores. In fact, the correlation between employee engagement and customer engagement is often about 0.6 to 0.8. And the employee engagement is often a lead indicator, either going up or going down. If the employee engagement drops in 6 to 12 months, you'll likely see a drop in customer engagement. Every one of us gets that. Many of us who travel, we do hotels, we do restaurants, we do airplanes, rent-a-cars. Sometimes we have companies we don't want to use because we've had a bad experience. When I probe that experience, it's almost always some employee did not respond well. And when we went to the company didn't respond well. On the other hand, I've had bad experiences at companies and I get a letter of apology, the employee responds well, and I still have a good experience. So my first take is the employee and customer experience co-vary. The research shows the following. About a 10% change on employee experience will most often lead to about a 5% change in customer experience and a 2.5% change in investor financial results. So it's 2 to 1 all the way through. Now, having said that, how do we in HR help the employees have a better experience? I think our job is to work in partnership with line managers, obviously, to help employees feel engaged, feel motivated, to build expectations with them that work. And coming out of COVID, when a lot of employees were not part of a team, they were working at home, they were isolated, they lost the sense of that social community that was so critical. Today, we in HR need to reconnect that social connection. I'm going to share some research we just posted, and it's really interesting on this. And I don't understand it yet. So that's part of the process of learning, I think. We studied leaders at the front line. So first line leaders, what did they do to increase performance of their unit? What's new in the last year or two since COVID? Here's what we found. Leaders should always set visions, do direction, all that's good. One of the things that's new is that when a leader works with his or her employees, in my work and other work I've seen, they say to the leader, show compassion, show empathy, care about the employee in a personal way with their current circumstance. Here's what our research showed. Don't focus on that. Focus with the employee on their opportunity looking forward. The most empathetic and personalized we can do to that employee who's struggling is to say, I appreciate all the demands in your world today. Let's talk about what your future is in this company. What's your career? What's your opportunity? How can I, as a leader, help you create a career in our company that will be the most meaningful for you? And you say, well, that's obvious, but it's not, because I and others have said, really focus on the employee personal well-being. But now we're discovering that well-being is not looking back or looking present, it's looking forward. What we're starting to call that is hope. Give your employee a sense of hope in the future, which is realistic expectations. I have hope that I'm going to weigh 180 pounds. That's never going to happen because for hope, but give the employee hope that if they work hard, if they do their job, they will have opportunities that work for them. So that's one of the things we're seeing with the employees. Paradox, social, economic balance, integration, and then giving the employees a sense of hope at what their future might be.
Great, Dave. As you said, the balance is, I think, the key. How do we balance the social aspects and the business needs of the organization? So, Dave, it's
Can
been
I give an
wonderful.
example of that? Because
Sure, Dave.
I think sometimes we say, well, can you really do that? Let me give an example. It's not, and it may work. Working with a company, they had manufacturing plants around the country, happened to be in the United States. The economy was bad. They were going to have to close a plant. That's really tough. And we all recognize, and there were 200 people that were going to be either have to move or out of work. What did they do? The entire senior team went to the plant on day one, and at 4 o'clock had a meeting with 200 people. And they said, here is what we've learned. We're going to have to close the plant. Here's the data. Here's the evidence. Here's all of the reasons why we'd love to be able to do other things. We can't. Go home tonight, think about it. Tomorrow, the 10 of us are each going to get an office. Any one of you employees can come visit with any one of us, the finance person, the technology, HR, manufacturing, marketing, CEO. We are available to you from 8 until 4 o'clock. Come talk to us. Sign up. At 4 o'clock, that team met. And that evening, they said, what did we hear from the employees? And a lot of them said, we don't want to close the plant. That's not an option. What did we hear from you? How can we treat you with dignity and respect? They came up with a plan. Day 3 at 8 o'clock, they said, we listened to you. We heard you. Here's what we're going to do to go forward. You may not like it. If I'm going to weigh 180 pounds, I'm not going to like what I have to eat. But that's the expectations. At the end of that meeting at 10 o'clock, the employees stood up and applauded. That's pretty cool. Now, they didn't like it, but they said, you have treated us with respect in terms of salary, in terms of bonus, in terms of timing, in terms of relocation. We understand the why, and we'll understand and accept the what. Again, simple illustration, but when we as leaders in HR business are architects of information and knowledge that shows respect for the employee, I think we can help the employee see that our social commitment and our economic commitment can go together.
Absolutely, Dave. So, Dave, it's been a wonderful session talking to you to understand the evolution of HR, the future of HR, the HR trends, how HR needs to step up. And you also talked about now is the time. And you've been an optimist and always an optimist. And you said the best is yet to come. I don't think we can have a better session to start this series of discussions on the people side of business. And thank you so much for having set the
So
trend.
before we end, I've got to ask, Ramesh, you're starting this new Global HR Talk Show. What do you hope? Let's look to your future. What do you hope those who listen will get from this discussion and others? This is not scripted, but what is your hope for the future of this show and those who will join in?
Dave, we would like to try and understand what are some of the challenges that organizations and people and business face on the people side of business. And how is it that through dialogues and discussions with thought leaders like you and other business leaders and people managers, can we find some inspiration and solutions to how to address these people challenges? I don't think, as you rightly said, an individual can find a solution, but collectively, if we keep discussing about it, we could probably come up with some solutions. And it's going to be a journey. It's not a one-time affair. It's going to be a journey. New challenges would arise, and we would have to address them on an ongoing basis. And that's the whole objective of why I'm starting this talk show.
How exciting. Can I ask what the logo means? Because I love your logo. It's very beautiful. What does it mean?
Yeah. It's basically trying to show that there is an HR community of people who are trying to reach out, trying to find some answers to these solutions of people challenges. And the whole objective of our community is to connect, to learn, and to grow.
Wonderful.
We believe that HR needs to connect with each other, and in the process, we need to learn from each other, learn new things from thought leaders like you. And hopefully, collectively, by learning and connecting, we will also grow individually and as a community and as a society.
Right. Thank you. You are going to create the best that's yet to come. Somebody said, I love to ask people, what's the best year of your life? And they say, the year I got married, the year my children left home. One of my partners said, the year I got divorced. Um, and I think they're all wrong. The best 12 months of your life is the next 12. Thank you for being a part of this great community, Ramesh. You have a great history, and I love the logo. I think when I look at that, I will always see these people reaching for the stars.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank, thank you so much,